Well, greetings all. Welcome to another episode of Music is a Journey. I'm Peter, and today's topic is actually three topics mixed together. First of all, this November crisis, November conundrum. So at the end of every year, well, coming up in October, I usually take stock of the albums that I bought during the year and think about which albums do I still really want to get before the year is done. Some of them are albums that have been in my sights for the last little while. Occasionally there are albums that have been sitting around on standby in my Amazon cart for even years. And a lot of cases it's just what I'm into now or something I just very recently discovered that I would really like to get a hold of. So that happened, of course, and as we came into November, I thought I should just make a list, and I should make a list of 7. 7 sounds like a really good, reasonable number to say there are 7 more albums that I want to get before the end of the year. However, I always know that means that 7 is what I want now. 2 or 3 days later, there's going to be something else that I want because somebody out there in YouTube land will have introduced me to another band or artist that I check out and think, wow, hey, I really like that. I got to get that one too. So yeah, 7 inevitably becomes 10, which then gets topped up with just 3 more, because just 3 more, that's reasonable. And then there's that new one coming out, I didn't know about that, and So yeah, it's a conundrum because I'm trying to put a cap on it, and you know, we're still in the middle of November here. It's November 16th right now, and there's still a few more weeks to go, and plenty of time for me to find other albums I'll want to get. As well as it's a bit of a crisis because I do have to really seriously watch the spending. The winter heating bills are coming up, and there was a really meaty job that I was supposed to have earlier this year, and I had to cancel 2 weeks before, which sucked because that meant a lot of the winter heating bill money is not available anymore. As well, there was another side job that I'd been in discussion with some people about, and they said, well, we'll let you know probably at the end of October or in November we'll ask you to do it. And now it's the middle of November and I've heard nothing. So yeah, all hopes for kind of extra income are not looking so good right now. But the good news is, as far as album purchasing goes, is that I do have alternate means. And so part of today's topic is kind of related to that. So I'm going to just start off now telling you what I've picked up recently and then get into the background stories, which is kind of the new stuff is the second part of this kind of triple themed video, and then how I got them is the third part. So let's just get started here. So first of all, before we even get started on that, this came in through the door just a couple of days ago, AC/DC's Back in Black, and this comes to me courtesy of the gentleman in Wales, Mr. Nick, over at Careful With That Axe Eugene music channel, or During the Meanwhile's photography channel, previously slightly music oriented as well. Anyway, I mentioned in a video not that long ago that I still did not have AC/DC's Back in Black on CD yet. Of course I had the cassette. In the 80s, AC/DC was my first favorite band, and I listened to all of the albums that I had over and over again. And I guess because of that, I didn't feel I needed to get Back in Black like I needed it, because it's still one of the 1 or 2 AC/DC albums I think I should have in my collection, but I was always looking for something I hadn't heard yet, something new, so I kept putting it off. And then I mentioned this, that I don't have it, and Nick thought, for shame, we got to get that corrected right away. And so he ordered a copy for me and had it sent over. So I've listened to it now twice through, and it's actually been really nice to hear this album again. At first, I thought it would have that kind of nostalgia effect that happens sometimes when I pick up an album I had in the 80s, where it's good to hear it once, and then it goes in a box and, you know, stays out of the way for another few years. But yeah, I listened to it once through and I thought, yeah, this album is better than I remembered it. And then I listened to it once through again tonight, and Nick, thank you so much. Actually, I'm really glad to have this. It's much more welcome to have it again than I remembered or thought that it would be. So many, many thanks to you, sir. All right, then we get on to something that I normally would have pre-ordered, but I didn't because it was kind of expensive. This is the latest Deep Purple release, Equals One. I almost thought I might not really need to get it, but at the same time I was kind of curious about this new guitarist, Simon McBride, coming in, and then I saw the video for Portable Door, and I thought, actually the band sounds really good. I mean, they sound as they've been sounding for the last 25 years or more. Excuse me, but I thought it sounded actually great, and I thought Ian Gillan's vocals have sounded better than I heard in the last couple of albums. So there seem to be improvements all around in a way. And I got it. The reason why I finally actually got it, this is part of the story, is because, okay, so first of all, this was 3,300 yen, and that is actually quite a bit. These days, a lot of new releases are coming out at that price, which is a little bit steep in my opinion. Anything over 2,500 yen is starting to look a bit pricey to me. So I was hoping there would be just a regular edition because they had all these like bonus Blu-ray editions and bonus this and that editions, and they were really expensive. So this was the cheapest version. But Amazon, as I happened to notice, was offering 600 points if you buy it. So I got the Amazon points that I would normally get for buying the album, as well as an additional 600, which I then used towards the purchase of the next album I will speak about shortly. What do I think of this album? It's rather good. I would say, I remember when Now What came out, I was very impressed with that. I thought it sounded better than, certainly better than Bananas, and even better than a lot of Rapture of the Deep. The next two albums, what was it, Infinite and Whoosh, they had some songs I liked, but I didn't feel the same excitement as I did over Now What. This album, I'm feeling there are a few tracks on here that really stand out for me. And so I think I'm going to, later on, do a video on the 4 most recent studio albums of Deep Purple, that is with original material, not the covers one. So anyway, Deep Purple Equals One. Glad I got it. Now I'm not missing any, again. And then with the 600 points that I got, I used 500 of them towards the purchase of this album. There's a man and woman here. This is a band called Whitehorse, and it is a wife and husband team. Let's see, I remember the husband's name is Luke Doucette, and the woman is Melissa McClelland. Rob at Northern Revolutions has been talking about this band an awful lot recently. They have a variety of albums. They have a country-styled album, they have a psychedelic-styled album, they have a pop-styled album, they have a rock-styled album, they have an album all in French. They do a variety. Sorry, still getting over that throat thing there that I was talking about previously. Maybe you remember in my last video I was speaking in lower tones. But anyway, edit. So I thought I want to check out a Whitehorse album, but ordering from Bandcamp, it was going to be a little bit expensive because of the shipping. However, I found 2 different albums available on Amazon here in Japan, and I checked out both of them. I decided I liked them both, so I just went with the cheaper one. This is, what's it called here? Strike Me Down. This is really a pop-oriented album, but with some distorted, almost like a psychedelic guitar. There's kind of like a waving psychedelic guitar. There's also a bit of a disco feel in a couple of songs, so it's a really interesting album. And I think normally if I'd been in the car with somebody and they played this, or if Rick Beato was talking about the latest top songs on Spotify and mentioned a song from here, I don't think I would have been inspired to buy the album. But the reason why I got it is because I was interested in checking out Whitehorse. I heard a couple of tracks from this one on YouTube. I thought, okay, I think I could make room for that in my collection. Recently, I have really had the feeling that I am looking to fill in like small chinks and cracks here and there outside of my usual musical preferences. So this seemed to fit the bill. This is going to be a problem, isn't it? And I had that 600 points. I used 500 in order to give myself a discount on this, and kept the other points for later. And I've listened to this a couple of times now. I'd say already there are 3 or 4 songs on here that I quite like, meaning I would put them on a mixed playlist. I would put them on a mixed playlist to burn to CD, to give to somebody. They are standout tracks for me. And overall, the album is pretty good too, I think. So I am probably going to buy 1, maybe 2 more Whitehorse albums at some point. But this one here, Strike Me Down, yeah, it's good. Glad I got it and save some money. Okay. I did already talk about this before, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but I just want to say I like the cover. I keep this CD out here on the desk like this, so every time I walk into this room, I see this album cover. I don't know, I just really like this album cover. Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings. But we talked about that previously. Also talked about this one previously, but this is part of the story here. So how I'm getting these outside of Amazon is through Yahoo Japan Auction, Yahoo Japan Flea Market, or another online flea market called Mercali. Mercali? Anyway, something like that. And recently when I hear about an album or an artist somebody talks about and I check them out and I think, hey, that sounds good, I want to get it. The first thing I do now is check on Yahoo Auction to see if it's there. And if not, then I go to Mercali. Or I'll check both places to see if it's on both. Mercali is more like people selling their own things. I sell some of my Demon Slayer cards on there. If I get doubles, I'll sell them. There are Mercali shops as well, but I feel Yahoo Auction, I feel there's more of a shop presence, especially when it comes to CDs and albums. So I actually go to Yahoo Auction first and search there. Also, one thing that I like about Yahoo Auction is they will list a bunch of things you might be interested in. So recently when I open it, I see all these different albums. There's actually a lot of 80s hair metal as well as traditional heavy metal, thrash metal that shows up, plus a lot of classic rock. Right now, recently when I open it, there's a lot of Yes, some Asia. I'm bidding on the Chris Squire's Fish album. Hopefully I can get that one. So it's kind of fun. It's almost like you do a little bit of window shopping and scroll through and just see what's up. And a lot of these albums are appearing for 1 yen as a starting price for the auction. And the way it works is the auction goes for about 6 days. So you start off, you bid your 1 yen or 11 yen, and over the first few days there might be a little bit of bidding. You'll get a notice, somebody outbid you, and you go and you bid again. Sometimes you actually have to bid a few times. One thing I actually don't like is they don't tell you honestly what the latest rate is. Like they'll say, oh, the current rate is, the current bid is at 350 yen. So you'll go, okay, I'll bid 360, and it'll say, I think what it is, somebody else has put in an automatic counter bid up to a certain point, which I don't know how to do. So when I go in and bid and say, okay, I want to bid 360, it'll say, you have to do higher. Okay, do it again. 370, it's got to be higher. 380, okay. 450, it's got to be higher. 480, okay, it's accepted. Oh, great, it's mine. I mean, I have the highest bid again. Anyway, that's how that bidding thing works. And then, as I found, there'll be a lull period. There'll be 2 or 3 days where every time I check, I'm still the highest bidder. But on the day of the auction, there'll be a few more bids coming in. I mean, on the day the auction closes. And then, like the last hour or so, last half hour before the auction closes, that's when it starts getting fierce, if it's going to get fierce. And the one thing I find you got to look out for are the auction snipers, which is what I'm calling them. And that's like where you'll have this period where nobody's doing any bidding. Every time you check, you're the highest bidder. It'll be great. The auction's closing in half an hour. And you come back half an hour later and you'll find that you've been counter bidded and somebody else got it. The auction closed and somebody else got it. And this will happen like right down, it might go like right down to the last like 10 seconds before the auction is over. And then if you're not watching, if you're watching, you'll see it. I did have this with some Demon Slayer acrylic stand that I really, really wanted. And I was watching it down. I had my finger over the button as it came down to be like, counterbid, 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 counterbid. So I think the auction actually went over by about a minute or so because me and this other person were just battling each other. But in the end, I won. Ha ha ha. So anyway, yeah, you got to watch out for the auction snipers. So I have to pay attention tomorrow evening when the auction comes to a close, I've really got to watch out for that Chris Squire album because I really want to get that. So anyway, what happened? One time when I opened it up, I saw this album cover and I was intrigued by it. In the small little square thumbnail, I thought, hey, who is this? And it's Renaissance. Now, I did talk about this album previously. This is the album Novella, which was their 5th album with the new lineup and 7th album overall. And I think we had a slight bit of a bidding war, but in the end I got this for, I think it was under 1,000 yen. It was probably 800 and something plus the shipping, 800 or 900. And one funny thing is that a lot of times, like, you check the description and the condition will say slight wear and tear, or like slight damage, or markings or whatever, right? I know the Japanese phrase, so you can put it in as no visible damage or no visible wear, or slight wear and damage, and then after that, you know, the condition gets worse. But a lot of these that are going up for 1 yen will say slight wear and damage, and then when I get it, it's pristine. There's nothing wrong with this. There's not even any markings on the paper inside. Like if somebody had this and they took it out and put it back in once, there might be a little mark, but there's nothing. So I kind of think this might actually be overstock from someplace, and then just to move their overstock around or their old stock around, they'll just throw it up on the auction and let the auction take care of it. So anyway, yeah, I quite like it. There's only one track on here I don't really care for, The Sisters. The rest of the album I think is pretty good. So yeah, this is how the auction works. I don't know if someone said there's no Yahoo auction in North America. I don't know if that's true or not. Doesn't matter so much to me, but anyway. A couple of other ones I want to mention. I always think of these two bands together for some reason. This is Eloy. This is a progressive rock band from Germany. Been around since the, I think, 69, 70, and still going. Had an album out a couple of years ago. And this is Nektar, a progressive rock band based in Germany, but an English band. So I guess because both of them are based in Germany, German band, English band, based in Germany, both of them prog rock bands from the 70s, and I think I found out about both of them and got into both of them around the same time. Plus I have, prior to buying these, I had, well, still the same, I have the same number of albums of both of these bands. And it's almost like when I buy an album from one, I buy an album from the other two for some reason. So that happened. So what we have here, this is Eloy's, I don't remember what number album this is, probably around like their 8th album, I think. It's called Colours. I think it was from 1979. This is not part of the remaster series, which was the only disappointment. If I bought the remaster series version, it would have cost me over 2,500 yen. I think 2,700 on Amazon. I got this for something like 600 yen, postage included, off Mercali. And I was able to pay for it using some of the money I had on the account from selling Demon Slayer cards. Right? So that was a pretty good deal. Didn't cost me anything. No dent on the credit card. This album I quite like. In fact, I'm finding myself really interested in the music of Eloy again, really. They do a lot of heavy keyboard-oriented music, but with some rock guitar. And there are a couple of tracks on here that do feature the scratchy, hard-rocking guitar sound. But I think kind of a unique band in a way, because they went in the keyboard direction with some Pink Floyd influence, but also in this, I don't know, not quite spacey, but just like the universe is grand and the spirits and astral world and this kind of thing. Very bold music, sometimes atmospheric. And I'm finding I'm interested in hearing more of their 80s stuff, because while they adopted the 80s sound, they continue to make the same kind of music. So there's an album or two of theirs I want to get. I saw Pete Pardo at Sea of Tranquility. He did a ranking the albums of Eloy, but he said he was only going to do his top 10 favorite albums, which just so happened to be the first 10 albums. And then there was another video of somebody ranking the albums of Eloy. He said he would do just his top 12 favorite, which happened to be the first 12 albums. So anyway, one of the albums in particular, he had some really cool things to say about, and I think it was from '84, so I want to get that. Anyway, that's Eloy Colours. And then Nektar. So Nektar, they were around, released a few albums in the 70s. I think their 70s albums are quite popular, and in the 80s they had one or two which are not so popular, and I think somewhere in the 80s or 90s they split up for a while, but they got back together around 2000 and started making albums again. I guess one of the main dudes in the band, Roy Arlington, he passed away in 2016, but this I think was the last album they made with him, if I remember correctly. I might not, because I didn't really look into it. This is an album called Evolution. They do have two more recent ones. One I think is called From the Outside, and another one is called Mission to Mars. I'm interested in both of them. But when I found I had to choose which album I wanted to get, this one was available on the auction site, and it was a bit cheaper than getting the other two, either of the other two. And when I listened to them all, I found the two more recent ones have a more warmer sound. They also don't include Roy. This one had more of a 70s rock feel to it. Some moments on here are really like Nektar in the 70s. As well, I liked when the guitar tone gets a little bit more aggressive. It's a little more higher tone, so I just felt I liked that better than the more warm, fuller sound of the more recent albums. But I'm interested in them, particularly the Mission to Mars one, because Styx did an album called Mission to Mars, and I'm kind of interested in having like both Mission to Mars albums. But that'll probably have to wait till the new year. So Nektar's Evolution album I got, it is used, but it's in really nice condition, and I think it would have cost me a lot more if I'd bought it new through the usual routes. I know this video is getting long, right? Do I make short videos? Rarely. I talked about this one in my last video, which was my contest entry for Stylus Meets Vinyls contest, around the world contest. This was my representation for Asia. This is a Japanese band called Flippers Guitar. Released 3 albums, 89, 90, and 91, if I got it correctly, plus a compilation in 93. This is their debut from 89. They are acoustic guitar, bass, drums, some keyboards, 2 male vocalists, really soft, gentle, peaceful, lovely vocals, and female backing vocals. I heard them way back in the 90s sometime. I think I borrowed it from a rental shop in downtown Vancouver that had Japanese CDs for rental. And a couple of the songs stuck with me, and I finally, recently have been feeling some of the music I want to get into a little bit more, like a dream pop and shoegaze. I thought maybe Flippers Guitar might be in there somehow, somewhere. And so I found this for, I think it was 300 or 400 yen, 400 maybe, including postage, so I bought it off the Mercali site. And I gotta say, yeah, there are 3, 4, maybe 5 songs on here that exactly fit what I was looking for, like acoustic guitar, maybe a bit of keyboard or something, very soft vocals, very pleasant, innocent, sweet melodies. Some of the other tracks on here, I gotta say, probably not really something I feel comfortable listening to. Like, if somebody heard me listening to it, I think I couldn't make any excuses. It would be like, well, actually, that's not a song I really like. But the songs that I do like on here, I'm glad to have them. Especially, I think, as I mentioned before, My Red Shoes Story is the song that I never forgot. So, yeah, Flippers Guitar. So that was a really cheap one to get used. This is probably the one that was in the worst condition, too, because there's a slight bit of wear on the CD case here. The white part is a little bit yellowish now. Probably, yeah, I think this one is from 1993 original, so from 1993. So yeah, but you know, a little bit of, you know, handling of the paper, but otherwise still very, very fine condition. Okay, I guess I'm gonna name these two together here. These also both came off Yahoo Auction. This one was a direct purchase. It was on the auction site, but you put in your bid and it's yours. Congratulations, there you go. So the Cult Electric, I've been hearing Nick, once again Nick, over at Careful That Axe Eugene has been talking about the Cult. I've heard a couple other people mention them recently. I never got into them in the 1980s, and I think it's because there was this one guy in my drama club who played this one song, like every time we met in the drama club before the teacher came. He had this portable, you know, cassette player or whatever, and he would always play this one song, and I just got, you know, I heard it enough, and I thought, okay, I don't need to get any Cult. It's not my thing. Also, listening to it, this is more of an AC/DC hard rock sound, this album, and I think I was kind of done with that by the time this album came out, I was, you know, getting more into the Slayer, Possessed, Bathory, Celtic Frost type of thing. So it wasn't really where my headspace was at the time. Now, however, I listened to it twice through, plus a few songs, one more time. I like it. It's good. It's a good addition to the collection. I might get the Sonic Temple one as well, particularly because I like the cover. And then the other one, I think I was talking with one of my fairly regular commenters about Soundgarden before. He was saying something favorable about them, and I checked them out, and I thought, yeah, I should probably pick up something. So I finally got Badmotorfinger. This was one of the cases where it was a auction sniper. I left work. There was an hour and a half left on the auction. I was the top bidder for the last 2 days, nobody interfering. I came home, the auction had closed, and somebody else got it. But somebody else was selling it also in no visible scratches or marks on Mercali, and once again, I had coin on my account there, so I was able to buy it without putting it on the credit card, which was nice. So yeah, Soundgarden's Badmotorfinger. It's good. I like it. I can't say that it has like totally infected me and made me think like, wow, what a fantastic album. But I do like it, and I want to check out the album that came before this. The one after, maybe not. The one before this, yes. So anyway, Soundgarden, together with The Cult. For some reason, I put those two together as well. Then, it's getting to be a long video here, but Starcrawler. I discovered them back in 2020. I really love 3 of their videos. In fact, thinking about what I wanted to say about Starcrawler, their videos, and their music, I realized I'm going to do a separate video about Starcrawler. So, just let you know, this is a Starcrawler album. This is the debut album. I think it goes back to 2018, when they were pretty much barely out of high school. So anyway, you'll see me talking about them in another video. I have their second album ordered as well. Okay, I'm going to have to pick things up a little bit here. The battery actually died. So now I'm recording without the microphone after giving it a bit of a charge. Also, Matt May's album Coyote. Again, Rob at Northern Revolutions has been talking about this album and Matt May's. And when I first checked him out, I thought, I'm not really ready to get into him yet. However, I checked him out again. Actually, I didn't. No, I just heard Rob talk about this album again. And then I saw it was available on Yahoo Auction, Yahoo Japan Auction, for a really low price because I was the only one bidding on it. So I ended up getting it. And yeah, so far, twice through, there are 3, maybe 4 songs on here that I really, really like. So I'll be listening to this one a little bit more. Matt May's Coyote, Coyote, right? And finally, this is a Japanese band called Luminous Orange. So I recently saw a video on 10 Japanese shoegaze bands, and I picked out 3 of them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to find their albums. Tokyo Shoegazer, all the albums are super expensive, so apparently they're not what they're out of print, and now they're really costly. Another band, they only ever released 1 album. I found it, but it's going for almost 6,000 yen. So remember, if it's over 2,500, it's expensive, and these ones are almost 6,000. So finally, a band called Luminous Orange. Now, the album recommended in the video was one called Drop You Vivid Colors, and it was not available. Bummer. So I checked to see what was available on both Amazon and also on the flea markets and Yahoo Auction and whatnot. And I found this one on the Mercali flea market for, I think it was 600 yen. This is an album called Sakura Swirl. I checked out the first track, Sakura Swirl, and it was like, wow, this is not shoegaze. This is some kind of electronic, experimental, slightly popish Japanese type thing. But the next 2 tracks, Every Single Child and Icicles, Every Single Child exactly the flooding distortion that you would expect from a shoegaze sound, the soft, dreamy vocals, active drumming and so on. And the next song, Icicles, didn't have as much distortion, but still had that feeling that I was looking for. So I thought, okay, I'm getting the album. And as it turned out, it is actually only those 2 tracks that sound like what I was looking for. The rest of them are all acoustic stuff. mostly, and pretty much sound like a slightly different version of Flipper's guitar, for heaven's sake. This is like if you find some like album from the early 70s and there are 2 really heavy tracks and you think, that's great, I'm getting that album, and find the rest of the album is all acoustic. That's kind of what it's like. But still not bad, and I've checked out some of their other albums. They all do have some of these typical shoegaze sound songs, but I'm not really sure if the entire albums are like that or if the entire album is mostly acoustic. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful before I get another Luminous Orange album. Not bad though, and I like the cover art. And as well, the Drop You Vivid Colors, I found that they actually have a mail order website where they're selling that album on CD. So looks like I will be able to get it. However, as I said, there's that whole crisis in November with the forthcoming heating bills and whatnot. So we're leaving it at that. A couple other things coming through the door. So Kathleen Edwards has been recommended by both Rob at Northern Revolutions and Glen Kellaway. Glen Kellaway from the Basement. I wouldn't say she's quite country, but it's this kind of softer acoustic electric rock with a bit of a country feel to it, but not with actually being, you know, a country band. And I found actually some of her songs are really, really good. She's got a few albums out. One of them I found on the Mercali flea market site, so I have ordered it, used some of my remaining cash in my account there to pay for some of it. So I'm looking forward to hearing that one. I think it's called Back to Me, her album Back to Me. There's another one where the cover has the Great Lakes are on the cover, and that one also has a song I really, really like, so I want to get that one as well. New Opeth album coming out, pre-ordered that one. As well, I mentioned a New Zealand artist going by the name of Phaser Days. I heard one of her songs, listened to a couple more, checked out the debut album, tried to order it from a website in New Zealand, but every time I clicked to pay, it said there's an error, and I haven't been able to order it. But she's dropping a new album, I think it was Friday, yesterday, November 15th. She dropped her second full-length album, and it's available in Japan from December, so I pre-ordered that as well. It's, I guess it's kind of dream popish, shoegaze-ish, but not quite either, or somewhere in that category. Anyway, Morten Aastad and I were talking about it in the comments of one of his recent videos, so I think he's pre-ordered it, and or he's going to pick it up at his local shop, and I've pre-ordered it. Is there anything else? Starcrawler. Oh yeah, and the Granicus album. Granicus, one of those early 70s hard rock bands from the US. I'm finally getting their album as well. So that's it. And that, yeah, aside from one more Kathleen Edwards album and one more Eloy album, I think that might be it. Probably I really have to stop. I should look at this month's credit card bill for all the expenses from last month. But anyway, that's going to be the end of that. Oh, before I go, I was mentioning Tokyo Shoegazer. It was actually in that video I mentioned about 10 Japanese shoegaze bands, but as well, Richard S. mentioned it in his video. I think his contribution to the Around the World photo contest, his entry for that. So he mentioned it, and I gotta say, Richard S., I think he's a pretty much new guy to making videos, but he has reached 100 subscribers. So congratulations to you, Richard, in case you see this video. And if anybody has not heard about Richard S., or you're not subscribed to him yet, do check out his channel. He's doing the same thing we're all doing, sitting in front of a camera and talking about records, but he's doing it just as well as everybody else is doing. So stop by and see what he's up to. Congratulations again, Richard. You're going to get to 200 pretty quick, I expect. All right, everyone. Once again, thanks for watching. Bye, all.